Call of Duty campaigns have been around for a long time now. We have over 20 years of history in this mode, and campaigns have tried pretty much everything at this point. We've done World War II settings, we've done the far future, we've done everything in between, but one of the particular flavors have always been the original Black Ops campaigns. Black Ops 1 and 2 are easily some of the most memorable and iconic ones to me, and I'm sure mean a lot to many of you as well, just like it does for myself. But the one that's always kind of stuck out to me is the Black Ops 3 campaign. While BO1 and 2 are pretty much universally beloved by almost everybody, BO3 is that one that doesn't really quite fit in the same way. There are people that like it, and there are also people that completely hate it or think that it's just this strange oddball, and they're not really sure why it exists. And I've felt that way for a long time too. It has been the one that's always perplexed me. But at the same time, the BO3 campaign is also the one that I found the most personally interesting as time has gone on. And so, as I'm just sitting here in the void, I see a magic fractal in front of me, and out emerges Jason Blundell to tell me about the Black Ops 3 campaign.
Well, Jason,
Sir?
Here we are in the void.
Sure are.
You've spoke about a void recently. Actually, very recently, you talked about a void.
Yeah.
Do you have any insight on the void?
Well, it's the unknowable, right? And they tell you to watch out when you stare into the void because it stares back into you, right?
Yeah, indeed it does. That it kind of feels a lot like what we're going to talk about today.
Okay.
So I wanted to do the BO3 campaign because, what the first thing I wrote on my paper, I said Black Ops 1 is the most iconic.
Okay.
And I think that's true. Everyone knows the numbers. They know Mason and Woods. That it literally set up what is still being continued to this day.
Yep.
Black Ops 2, I might say is my favorite.
Okay.
Just because I think I really enjoyed the way that you can make choices and it doesn't feel like you're just along for the ride. Like you're an active participant and you don't know the little things you do, how they're gonna affect things. Right. And I think that was really neat. But I would say Black Ops 3 is the most interesting to me.
Sure.
So I think there's a lot to take apart there.
It's a hot take. It's controversial.
I know. And a lot of people are going to be like, well, dude, but Black Ops 1's the best. And you know what? You can have that. But I think, I genuinely think that a lot of people might come around to BO3 after, I just think it went over a lot of people's heads, and we can talk about that.
Okay.
But I was kind of just curious of where the idea for all this even really came from, because it's so disconnected. At least it seems.
Yes. Where did it come from? Well, it came from a product of development. So by the time we started in true earnest to make the campaign, we're under time pressure. And this often happens, by the way, for both 1 and 2's a little bit different, but 1 was definitely under time pressure. 3 was incredible. It was a very tight development cycle. And so thinking about the story, and obviously be remiss for me not to mention Craig Houston, the writer of this story and the writer of the dialogue for all 3. Talking about, could we do a story that really kind of challenged the viewer in some way, challenged the player in some way? At the time, somewhere after kind of Black Ops 2, somewhere in around Black Ops 2, the conversation started to happen in the games industry about the validity of campaigns, about where the focus was. MP, which had started off as a side mode in Call of Duty originally, was very quickly becoming the main thing. Right? Yeah. And the conversation started to turn around with, what function does campaign have? Obviously, as passionate storytellers, we're like, well,
sure,
it's reason is itself. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But as we're in a business, we make money, and so as multiplayer is driving more and more fans towards the game, we really started kind of questioning ourselves, questioning what the job of the campaign is, what the job of the story is, and I think at the time there was a bit of a more of a kind of disparaging mentality, which was, well, maybe the campaign doesn't have a function. Maybe all it is for marketing materials for when we release the game, and there's this small fraction of people who play it. Well, the numbers told us different, that large numbers of people were playing the campaign. But there was this narrative. So this is a long way of answering your question.
No, this is great.
There was a little bit, and I've mentioned it before on kind of zombies. Zombies has a bit of a kind of rock and roll aspect to it.
Yeah.
And we'd obviously been doing a lot, zombie work. The idea that the campaign was becoming the friend in the corner, that it's not got any edge anymore, that it's the safe guy, right? Mm-hmm. We were like, that's not campaign. Campaign's about telling stories that engage people and challenge people and make you think about things. And the idea happening that, now it's just a thing that comes on the disc. Yeah, the campaign. We're like, oh, no. And so when we got to number 3 with the timing challenge, we said, okay, let's put a bit of rock and roll back into the campaign. Let's go further. And because of the challenge of the time, there was very little checks and balances. It was. We got to get there. We've only got a limited amount of time, and so we went for it.
So they kind of let you off the leash a little bit, and we're just like figure it out. And
when development of such a large project is behind the 8 ball and it's got to move. There's very little checks and balances. We got to go. We got to move.
Some knowledge is worth earning, appreciating, and that takes time. Time is something we don't always have.
I just play it now, and I'm like, how does this exist in a Call of Duty game? Mm-hmm. And I think what you said about like it being one of those things where it's like, does it still belong in Call of Duty? And I think it absolutely does. Like I say this all the time because people go, oh, nobody plays campaigns anymore. I'm like, well, that's not true if there's a reason for them being there. And it grounds the game in something. It gives intention to,
yes.
I mean, like when I think about zombies, it's like all of the guns and even like the scenery in those older games are all repurposed from the campaign. It's like the campaign gives everything intention or it grounds everything. And like BO3 to some extent is no different. And I think because of how wild it is, I think that opened up possibilities not only for like multiplayer stuff, but also zombies. And so I just think it's kind of it's a miracle that it exists, but I also think it's like, it has some of the most interesting stuff that only a fraction of people probably know about. And that drives me crazy because I'm like, there's such cool stuff in here that you just don't know.
Well, it's a product of its limitations, as all of them are, right?
Yeah.
With a very short amount of time, you have, in my view, you can work on something small and perfect it. If you work on something big, you have to accept the fact that your focus is going to go down. The more things that you do, the less focus they're going to get, right? Mm-hmm. But with a short amount of time, the way to get out of the problem, as I saw it, was paralyzation, which was, I have lots of hands, right? But I have a short amount of time. We talk about in development about the triangle, the number of people you have, the amount of time you have, and the amount of money it costs.
Sure.
Right? And so my time is limited, right? My money's okay, because I'm in Call of Duty, so we're doing okay. But I got a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
So Black Ops 3 was, okay, how do you solve that problem? It's like, okay, we're going to go wide. We're going to go fast, we're going to go wide. So that's why there's so much stuff in there, is that I could have done a more traditional campaign and slowed everything down, but I was worried then that I wasn't going to get to the same heights. Because if I focus and make it small, then you have to deliver on, you have to hit the quality. But I went, okay, I'm going to go wide, and then I'm going to do spot checks on kind of quality as we go, so we can get more stuff in because we're so behind on time, which is why it's so unique compared to its offering to 2 or to 1.
Yeah, and I think people will see that as we get into this a little bit, because I wanted to play like just a couple of missions for you, just ones that I picked out. But I think the thing that people notice immediately is that like Black Ops 1 and 2 have this like through line, and then you get to BO3 and people are like, what's this?
Yes.
Who's John Taylor? It's like
well, I mean, so again, and this goes back to the other conversation. In the past, campaign normally set the era. We were normally responsible for, okay, we're doing World War II. Okay, we're doing World War II. These are the factions we're going to do. These are the theaters of war we're going to go to, right? You get to Black Ops 1, again, we're telling a Vietnam story. Okay, we're telling a Cold War story. Okay, we're setting the mood. By the time we get into 3, we're now talking about the advanced movement. And now MP is actually dictating a certain thing, and rightly so, because that's where that focus is going. And so the campaign group had to follow, because you've got, if you know, you mentioned before, your assets are being made for the game. You don't have the budget to be able to make completely different ones. You know, we did a little bit, but something like a Shadows of Evil, for example, that's an absolute dedication to say all these assets are going to be generated for this world. That's me spending a chip, you know, as they say, right?
Yeah.
But for the campaign, you know, it wouldn't make sense for me not to follow where they're going. So as they're doing advanced movement, I've got to do advanced movement. If I'm doing advanced movement, then I'm in the future. If I'm in the future, okay,
All bets are off.
How far are we in the future? Well, we're this far in the future. If we're that far in the future, any story I tell back about the Masons is going to sound silly, because if I go, that's his great grandfather, it's going to, you know, at some point, I'm guaranteed to be in the place where people had issue with Black Ops 3. I was guaranteed to get there. Okay. I could either deliberately do it and say, oh, I could make a story all about the great grandfather of Alex Mason.
Yep.
And then I'll be like, oh, you failed that, and it's just going to be a watered down version. If I totally dedicate to it, it will still be weak. So I might as well go over here in this other path, and just give a reference as best as I could do.
So to some extent, that answered the question of why this campaign exists in the first place, as it was dictated by the era of time that the game overall was going for. And he realized that doing a story still, you know, playing off the Masons would just be silly at any rate.
Like by number 2, you're all, you know, Menendez is heading into Kaiser Soze territory, where you're basically having a guy going, I worked out that in 15 years time you will join this military group, and hence I'm going to do this to you, right? Yeah. You're already kind of riding the line of, suspend your disbelief for a second.
Yeah.
If I did it in 3, there's just no getting away with it. If I asked you to suspend your disbelief in 2, this guy who saw you as a kid is now going to have revenge on you later because of your family. By 3, your great grandfather. I've got a plan. You know, I was like, it's too far. You know, and so whenever we kind of entertain those kind of stories, it just seemed so desperate and so reaching that I just thought it would be a lukewarm story that's kind of going, remember the old stuff.
Remember this.
So it's like, I've got to go to the future because of the movement style, so I have to go there. So I might as well have to tell my own story. Mm-hmm. I've got to try and stay in the world to some degree, but everywhere where I tried to connect the thread or we looked at it, it sounded desperate.
That's fair. And with that said, though, it's not that it is disconnected, because if you look at things a little closer, you realize that there are some of those threads that but it's done in a way that I feel like pays homage to it and honors it, but it's not like a in your face, remember Black Ops 2? It's just...
Yeah, that was, again, not to sound like a broken record. The idea being that this was kind of rolling forward with the families. Like, what is this, the most unluckiest family in history that, the son's still gets effed with by some military group from... I was just like, no, it's not going to work. So so it's like, okay, let's tell the story, but then let's have those events from 2 shape the world or set the world up into the state it's going to be in. Not try and tell a definite through line.
The reason I kind of wanted to do this video is because it's like people will play Black Ops 1, and I think most people will probably get the twist at some point.
Sure.
And they'll be like, I got it. I don't think that's the case with this game.
Yes.
Like, because it feels like all of the pieces are there in BO1. And if you put them together, you can, and yeah, they are here in BO3, like the pieces are there, but I don't think you really have all the information for it to like snap into place by the end. And was that intentional?
Yeah, so, we'd worked with David Goyer as a script advisor on the first one and on the second one, actually. And, one of the most significant contributions he made was in the first one saying, no, we need Hudson to spell it back out to the player again. Like, say everything again, right? And it's the kind of thing that when you're building a story, you kind of forget, well, this and then that and then the other. And we made Black Ops 1 and we were real proud of ourselves. Oh, look how clever we're being. And the perspective he gave was, you're not actually lifting it up high enough. You need to show it to the audience clearly. And we'd say, well, we just said it there, and we said this here, and Reznov did that there, you know. He's like, no. It's got to be said again. It's got to be said again, nice and clearly, so everyone can see. And he was absolutely right. And I think that's why Black Ops 1, you can see the moments, and then if you've not, we give it you all on a platter.
Yeah.
When we got to 3, because of where we were at in terms of, okay, let's make a story that has to be experienced in terms of, we kind of knew, we thought, we want people to have an emotion, especially if people are questioning campaigns and their relevance. We want you to have an emotion. Whichever emotion doesn't matter, we want you to have one.
That's very interesting.
And so we said, well, we know the techniques of how to kind of lift stories. I mean, we've done it in zombies, and that was a very complicated story. And we've done it in regular campaigns, you know. And we said, okay, well, let's take a regular campaign and then be deliberately opaque about it. And actually to the point of frustration was part of the conversation we were having.
What I literally have it on my paper. What I was going to say is that I think the majority of people who played it for the first time, most people's like just vanilla, just first run through, they're going to end the game and they're going to hit that ending screen with frustration and confusion.
Yes.
And
that ending, by the way, that was directly from, you know, kind of inspiration from the film Scanners, which I remember watching when I was a kid. So I won't ruin it if anyone's not seen it, but the very end has got a very similar situation where you know, two characters go in to have a fight, and when they kind of, you know, they're having this psychic kind of battle, and when one character kind of comes back out again, it's the bad guy, and you think, oh god, the bad guy won, and then he says the name of the good guy, and you go, whoa. And that was like the 1970s, where you can, or probably the 80s, but they weren't afraid of ending the film and not of satisfying the audience. So, you know, when I was a kid, you know, I obviously loved American cinema. I was a lot into the American films, but I started watching a lot of Japanese and Asian movies. And why was because you never knew if the hero would live or die. They have no problem with killing off everybody. Even if it's a love story, they'll kill everybody, right? And, you know, all the stories we'd told, we had to kind of follow that more kind of Western way of telling stories. And so with the gloves off and this kind of campaign on the table, I was like, you know what, now's the time to do something which we're not normally allowed to do, which is give you a less than satisfactory ending.
Outcome? Train go boom.
Well, I saw this more like cubism, as I completely disappear up my own bum here for a second. But you know, the classic painters, you know, they could paint incredible paintings, right? And when they started exploring cubism and other kind of artistic styles, the people would be like going crazy. Like, what do you mean? Why are you making this crap? You should be making paintings that look like things. I was kind of thinking about that a little bit, which is its purpose is for itself a little bit. It's supposed to be a little bit of an enigma. It's supposed to be due to the actual narrative, the story we're telling. I think the actual form needs to follow the structure of the story. And so the story is unfinished and is a thing that makes you question. And the actual shape of the thing should also be that, which is also why all the levels are unlocked and so forth.
To me, like, Black Ops was never about Mason and Woods and whatever. It's like, I think when a lot of people think about Black Ops now, that is what maybe it feels like to them. But I've always felt like Black Ops was not about the literal events or the characters. It was about the spirit of like pushing the line. Yep. And doing something that you're not even sure is possible to pull off. Yep. I mean, you know, like BO2 was the first time you guys ever did like a choice-based system. Yeah. And BO3 is like that literally taken to 11.
Each one of these games, we start off talking about feelings, not about structure, not about characters, not even about, I mean, sure, that time period kind of comes up because it's just a function of getting the machine rolling. But, you know, Black Ops 1 is, you know, as we're talking about it, can we get you to question the nature of the game that you're playing? Right, it was one of the questions. For the second one, can we make a bad guy that you are torn in terms of their actions and your morality or the morality of the world? How do we feel about a bad guy that's more three-dimensional? Because the typical first-person shooter game, it's proper mustache twirling. I'm an evil bad guy. I want to take over the world, and so that was the question for number 2. Can we make someone who's a more three-dimensional character who, not saying is it gray? No, they're doing bad things, but there's this kind of dimensionality to them. And then by 3, it was like, okay, can we do something where it's not about saving the world? Because everything was always saving the world. It's like, can we make something that's more of a local, disturbing story?
Well, on that note, we should actually talk about the story then,
Yeah.
because that's where the real crux of this is.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically said that, like, the way a first-time player experiences it is most likely in the mission order that you're given, right? You start with this mission Black Ops and you go all the way down, and then you end with that mission Life.
Yep.
I wanted to jump in here real quick because I think in order to truly appreciate the twist and the ending of this campaign and the rest of what we're going to talk about, you really need to understand how the campaign is experienced by the average person. When you play it, you start as this unnamed player, and your first mission, you are with Jacob Hendricks, and you end up meeting his team with John Taylor, and you end up getting badly injured in this mission. On the brink of death, however, Taylor comes back to rescue you and gives you this very experimental DNI reconstructive surgery. And after John Taylor shows you how to use it, you have to continue to go on missions with this new, cerebral link that you have. But what you realize is that after going on a mission investigating a CIA black site, you find that all of the CIA have been killed here, but reviewing the security logs reveal that it was John Taylor's team that killed the CIA. Now the question is, why did they do that? You now have to spend the rest of the game hunting down John Taylor's team one by one, eliminating them until you find John Taylor himself and confront him on a rooftop. But after Hendricks finally kills Taylor, things get a little bit weird as not only Hendricks, but also you follow suit. And then you come face to face with Corvus, the frozen forest. You realize that this Corvus has been driving this team to do these unspeakable things, and the only thing left to do is to purge your own DNI, the very thing that John Taylor gave you to finally see clearly again. And when purging your DNI, the finale plays.
Imagine yourself
What's your name, soldier?
in a frozen forest.
I said, what's your name?
Taylor.
And then the very end, the twist is, he's purging his DNI, and the guy goes, "Soldier, what's your name?" And then it counts down, and he goes, "Taylor." And then it just cuts to black, and it's like by Jason Blundell.
Yep. I like that fact. I like the fact that we're making a story that at the end of it kind of hits you like a cold bucket of water. Have you seen the film Don't Look Now?
No, I haven't.
Similar experience. You walk away from the film just feeling cold. It's deliberately set up that way.
Okay.
And that was the kind of challenge looking at this game, which was, okay, we're trying to make you feel things. Okay, there's multiple times we can talk about. Multiple times I was trying to make you feel things, but that was another option, which is the very end. I was like, well, I can absolutely make you feel something at the very end.
That, yeah. I mean, it that might be the hardest hitting ending, for better or for worse, in a campaign ever.
Yeah.
It's just because it is like, it's abrupt, but it's also, there's a finitude to it.
I can't stand apathy. I don't, why are we doing all this? The amount of hours, the amount of work that goes in.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to make an entertaining game. Yes, I want you to have fun. But the storytelling, the world building part of me needs you to either want to be there, not want to be there, question the thoughts that you've had, right? They're all the stories that stick with me, is when I've had a feeling about it, not always positive.
Yeah. And so that story hits you, when you get to the end. But that's not the real story, is it, Jason?
You have to tell me.
That's not the real story.
I need an answer.
Oh, because I should also mention, this campaign's co-op.
Yes.
So did the fact that it was co-op influence where the story went, or was it vice versa? Or did it matter?
So I knew that I wanted to make a co-op story, a co-op experience. And as soon as we started working out what the crux of the story would be, we could start embracing all the things that were natural development things that happen, and then say, okay, how do we make this a reason? So let me explain.
Yeah.
Something like Black Ops 1. Every time Reznov moves somewhere, we have to animate him. Right? The poor animation department has to move him every all the time. There's a bit in, and I forget which one, and I'll probably say the name, and I'll be talking about the development name rather than what the release name of the map is. But
sure.
We have one of the names in Vietnam, one of the maps, and Mason has to climb up some wall, some roped wall or something, or some vined wall. And the animation department said, well, we don't really have time to do the animation for Reznov also to do that. I was like, well, we got him there. He's got to get to the top. And so the conversation was, when the player gets onto because as you mount onto it, we move you into a different animation. You can't get off once you're in there. So they make you go up, and then we'll just put Reznov at the top. And people aren't going to realize that you didn't see him climb. And our development thing is we don't have to do the animation, but actually story-wise, it's because he's in your mind.
Yeah.
Right? And so similarly, when we were kind of looking at, Black Ops 3, we're talking about, well, the player, it's just the player, right? We're not going to call him a name. We're going to say he's the player.
Yeah.
And then hence, when you're looking at 4 players or 3 players, we've now got a ambiguity about who is the star, right? Who is the main person?
Come on, man. You know me. Hendricks.
So, for I'm gonna spoil it for people. I mean, if you haven't played the game, it's been out for a little while, but
You have no excuse.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, like the way that the real story plays out is that the missions are not exactly backwards, but the first mission is pretty much the last mission chronologically. And if you play it that way, then things make a little bit more sense.
Sure.
And also, like, you probably saw it when I started the game, the text log scrolls really fast. And you know damn well people aren't going to read that.
Yes.
But I'm sure that was also intentional.
100%.
But if you do like slow it down or you freeze frame it, that is a description of the reality of what happened in that mission.
Yes, well, the reports,
Yes. And then reading the report takes on a little different context than what you actually played in the mission.
Yeah.
And the thing I wanted to mention about that is like that's only one part that helps connect it. The fact that the first mission's basically the last mission and the pre-scrolling text logs. But there's little moments that I really love. Like in the first mission in this one, you're playing and you meet up John Taylor for the first time.
Yep.
And he's chatting with Hendricks and he's like, yo, man, you still dating Rachel? And he's like, no, it didn't work out. And then they just move on.
Nice to see you, Jacob.
You too, John. You look different. You still seeing Rachel?
That didn't work out.
Yep.
And you're like, what was that about? And then you realize later that not only did he was talking about Rachel, but he had the thing on his arm, the bandana. And that makes sense when you get near the end of the game, when you play that mission where you're on fighting the VTOL like on the roof.
Yep.
And then he gets his arm hit, and then he gets his little surgery, and Rachel leaves her bandana behind in that mission.
Yep.
So you're like, wait a second, I've seen that before.
And those scenes line up as well. You can edit it in terms of, we do 2 shots of the hospital bed, and if you actually connect them together, they're actually one sequence.
Really?
Yeah. So it's because it's one memory. So like I think it's I forget the actor's name, unfortunately. Gentleman who played McNamara. He comes in and has a conversation with you. But if you actually look, you see Rachel going out the door at the same time. So it's actually one sequence if you put them together. I
thought I knew everything about this campaign. Apparently I don't.
I hope not.
Welcome back.
Oh, and then the Egyptian guy, Khalil.
Yes.
Right? He gets captured in the mission Lotus Towers.
He sure does, yeah.
And then you rescue him in the first mission. But he like already knows Hendricks.
Yep.
There's no like, there's no introduction. He just knows him. And you're like, why are you guys so like chummy already? Like,
Which then you get the introduction when you're in Cairo.
yeah, and he's like, you know, good to see you. He's like,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
oh, you guys know each other already.
Uh-huh.
I just love all those little moments.
That's Craig.
Yeah.
Craig Houston special right there.
Was that a Craig moment?
Oh, Craig's doing all the dialogue.
What the fuck is safe? What do you mean safe? John! John, don't go! What is the frozen forest?
Robots compromised. Taylor's controlling them.
We got to try something different. Like, there was a very safe version of this campaign we could have done, but we saw that as being a kind of waste of the opportunity in a weird way.
Oh, so is there anything you can speak about that? Like, I don't know if you had any ideas of like where you, before this ended up coming, like, did you have any ideas of where you might take the story before, like the safe version?
Yeah, I mean, so there was two options. You know, one is if we weren't going to be this far in the future. If it wasn't this far in the future, there's a whole story we could have done.
Okay. Which would have been maybe more connected to like the prior stuff.
Yeah. Because if we could have gone a little bit closer to number 2, yeah, you could tell a more definite story. Right?
Sure.
Because we were so far forwards, the safe version of this was just basically making a more regular Call of Duty. Right, so more linear story, more, you know, don't have to do the kind of fancier features. My worry was that by the time we were at 3, we need to give something different.
You got to push that line again.
You got to push it. I mean, we tried to do that in every single one of them, to be honest. But for 3, I was like, okay, really got to kind of go further.
Mm-hmm.
It's strange because once you're in the third of a series, you'd think, well, just give them the second one again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately or unfortunately, that's not my style. You know, even 2 to 1, it was like, okay, how do we push this? Now, every time you push something and try something, you are gambling, right? If you're not a gambler, the games industry is not the industry for you, right? We're taking risks because there's nothing safer than like, well, the audience like it, we'll make that again and give it to them again.
Mm-hmm. And again, to me, that's Black Ops.
Sure.
It's not Woods and Mason. Like I love them. Everyone does, but they're not Black Ops. Black Ops is, we're gonna try something crazy. We're gonna try something weird, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But we're
100%.
gonna take that.
It's you've got to, and I believe this in your career in general, right? Take risks, right? Do things that make you feel uncomfortable. There's nothing easier in a weird way than just doing the same thing again.
Yeah.
And everyone will talk this game until they're actually sitting there having to make the decision, and then they'll make the safe decision.
You don't understand. I'm taking us home. We'll be safe. We'll all be safe.
You probably remember this. You guys were doing these Dr. Salim Snapchat teasers, right?
Yep.
And I would be in school, like I was in high school, and I'd be in like French class, and then I'd get this thing on my phone. It was like, Dr. Salim sent you a Snapchat. I'm like, and me and my friend would be like, oh my God, we have to watch it like right now. And it'd be like, imagine yourself in the frozen forest, right? And you see the ravens and everything like that.
Yep.
The thing I wanted to ask you about, and maybe this is like a Craig question more, but I'm like, what is the frozen forest, Jason?
What is the frozen forest?
Tell me about the frozen forest.
Oh, you won't get that out of Craig either. I mean, so you know, on its surface, you can say it's a psychological technique that he's using it for the patients that he's dealing with. You could look at it in terms of what the AI has turned it into, if you believe that. And so it's a vehicle for multiple things. But being a psychological construct means that it's open to interpretation about how it's used. And it all depends who you're talking about when you're talking about it as well.
All right, well, that means we're going to have to get into... Okay. All right.
The paper's out.
Yeah, the paper's back out.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm having to do this from memory. This is what, 15 years ago?
Yeah. So now we get into it.
Okay, now we're getting into it.
What the fuck?
Taylor, are you still with me?
you find out that the whole time you've been Taylor, and you've been hunting down a guy named Dylan Stone. And so people, would hear that if they just played the BO3 campaign for the first time, be like, who the hell is Dylan Stone?
Yeah.
Because unlike BO1, where, you have Reznov and you know who Reznov is, and you have those snippets of like Alex and Reznov kind of morphing, you have no context of who the hell Dylan Stone is.
Yep.
Other than, and I think I mentioned this before, there's a...
I'm going to do the terminal. Shout out to Dan Laufer. I
wanted to ask you about that. But there's you guys did a comic for Black Ops 3.
Yes.
Now, I haven't read it.
Okay.
But I assume that it's more the like real story, because I think Dylan Stone's in the comic.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So were you expecting people to put together the pieces because of the comic? Or
No.
No? Not... Oh my God.
No, the game was is and supposed to be a thing unto itself.
Okay.
Yes.
It's just that's the experience, and
Yes.
the comics themselves are their own experience.
Again, I'm going to be a bit arty now.
Go ahead.
The game does not need any supplementary material. It's supposed to be a self-contained experience that will generate an emotion in you.
Wow.
That's what we're trying to do.
Wow.
And so it's either an emotion narratively, it's an emotion gameplay-wise. I'm trying to either kick you out of your Call of Duty apathy, lethargy, or I'm trying to narratively stimulate you in a way that is not just an action movie ending. I'm trying to make a more complex feeling in you by the time you've finished the experience.
Would it make it easier if you could see it? If you could see it right now, would that help you understand?
Well, one of my favorite things about this campaign is actually what's in this. So a lot of people know, you can come over here and click on this thing. There's a codex, right? And then you can start kind of...
An unfeasible amount of work, by the way. This is like crazy. Poor writers with their fingers turned into nubs.
Yeah, I bet.
All this.
Well, you have a bunch of things about like the Winslow Accord and whatnot. And when you pick up like a collectible, it has its own like little, description as well with all the stuff. But there's something really cool that even if you know about this codex,
there's a lot of cool things.
There's a lot of cool things. If you hover over this icon, and I don't think you can even do this on a keyboard.
Okay.
If you do this, you can pull up a little menu.
Wow. That's crazy.
That's crazy. And this has had some of my favorite stuff, but there's this little menu that I would wager, of the percentage of people that know about all the Dylan Stone stuff and the actual twist of the game, a fewer percentage know about this menu right here.
Yep.
I mean, people were finding codes for this as recently as like a year ago. And I don't know how they found them. I really don't. But it has some really interesting stuff that I want to look at with you and get some of your thoughts on some of these.
Sure.
There's one here. You put Tell Me All into this.
Yep.
And then you come over here. You have the whole index. Jason, look at this. I mean, there's like 500 entries. Who did this?
So the writer primarily was a guy called Dan Laufer, who's still there at Treyarch, does amazing work, and he took this on.
This is all him.
Yeah.
How?
I think I'm right in saying that. I think if it's not all him, like 90% was him.
That's so crazy. I mean, it will take you a month just to go through these and read them.
I know, because I had to.
I bet you did.
Yeah, because we got all the stuff we need to tell, right, story wise.
Yeah.
And then we've got to go through and do our normal little cheeky things. So that all has to be consistent. And then there's the other layer of cheeky things we have to put in. So by the time you finish, you've kind of gone through this, like the whole thing you've gone through, I don't know, 6 or 7 times, the whole thing. And you're doing spot checks on stuff as you're going, and then you're doing the whole thing. Herculean levels of patience to be able to,
no kidding.
For the writers to be able to sit down and do this.
I can't even imagine. And the thing is, like, as far as I'm aware, many of these entries you will never see unless you put in that little code. So, no? Interesting. Okay. Well, there was a couple I wanted to look at with you.
Okay.
So I was going to say, Jason, I think you were a bit ahead of your time with the AI thing a little bit. Like I'm looking through this, and I'm like, you know what? Between this and all the like Corvus stuff, you know, in the game, I'm like, I think you guys were like 8 years ahead of where you should have been. Because if this had like hit now, people would be like, oh my God, this is genius, right?
Sure.
You know, I think you were a little too far ahead of your time.
Okay. I'll take the compliment. Yeah, it's okay.
I genuinely think that because like there was a lot of like interesting ideas you were getting at with you know, artificial intelligence and so on.
I mean, we felt that in regards to Black Ops 2. You know, we were talking about drone warfare and autonomous robots on the battlefield.
Yeah.
You know, at the point where everyone thought we were insane. You know, you look at what modern battlefields look like now.
Yep.
It's pretty much, you know, what we're talking about there. I mean, maybe not in such a formal, militarized way.
Yeah.
But it will be, and you're already seeing it kind of happening in certain kind of theaters of war. And as we were doing that at the time, I remember us thinking, like, really? You know, we had these military advisors saying, this is how it's going to be. And we're like, really? And so it's a bit kind of spooky and crazy to switch on the news and go, oh, look, there's the stuff that we were doing back in Black Ops 2. So, you know, when we're talking about Black Ops 3 and we're talking about, you know, body augmentation, we're talking about AI, we're talking about what happens when the divide between synthetic and organic kind of blurs. You know, what is it to be human? You know, I hope we weren't being prophetic enough, but
I mean,
we might have been. So,
and that you put this game in like the 2060s. That's like approximately where it falls. But I'm like, it kind of feels closer than that.
Well, yeah, again, you've got to think about at a point where technology is suitably advanced that the average person can then have digital body augmentations. And then to the point of saying, okay, well then the military will have a certain version of that. How long before you get to that point where the average soldier can have it? Now, sure, we're talking about a Black Ops soldier, hence they can have very specialist equipment. But we are starting to have that conversation about how long before the average military has body augmentation, and how long before, in the same way that we want to track emails or we want to track signals intelligence, how long before you are just a digital asset to the larger system?
Doesn't just happen. The people need to be protected. If the only way to prevent future attacks is to monitor the thoughts and desires of the population, then the choice is obvious. We need to know who our enemies are and what they are planning. That is how we save lives.
I wrote down, actually, though I can't find it on here because it's probably buried somewhere, but I wrote down what was in it. You're gonna like this. So there's so like, you know, in here you find out there's like this hacking group called like Duran or something, right? And they're leaking all the government secrets, and but a lot of the entries are like they're not like a proper cipher, but I'm pretty sure they're just in like Morse code or something.
Sure.
And you decrypt them, and one of them reads, "The Imperialists have found us. Flee while you can. Go to the city of Walcourt for more information. There you'll find a market. Seek out the man with the red scarf and tell him the giant has risen."
You just made it laugh so hard in the past, you know that? I remember that one come up, I'm like, no, not touching it. No, pass.
That's a good message, yeah.
It's a good message, huh?
I need an answer.
Dude, that's like Alan Wake stuff. I mean, I don't even know what to make of that because I'm like, are you insinuating Monty has been doing things, but you know, in that universe?
This is a campaign talk, isn't it?
Yeah, right. Well, that's the thing, is it? I thought that was really interesting because it was like that was the first time that I felt that traditionally a lot of the modes were very separate, doing their own thing, and that kind of felt like the first time that like that fourth wall broke a little bit,
Yeah.
like between the modes, which never, at least up to that point, hadn't really happened.
No, and I was in charge of both, and I would try and keep them separate, right?
Yeah.
But no, that one was because I felt it was the nature of 3's campaign. So 3's campaign, like I was probably very poorly trying to describe, but I just wasn't trying to make a regular campaign. And again, it was a forcing function of the situation we're in. But
yeah,
I was like, okay, well, if we're in this situation, then let's make an experience rather than a campaign, which is a slightly different way of making something, right? I know how to make a campaign.
Yeah.
Let's make a campaign, right? It was then, okay, let's change the target.
How so?
Well, like I was mentioning before about how do you make something that has an effect on someone? In the same way, I was looking and thinking, maybe the boundaries between storytelling as well is part of the thing that will make you feel uncertain. Thinking more, I think the reference I made is more David Lynch, right, as a director.
Yes, yes.
And you know, it's not about the literal, right? The literal, you know, is there a structure? Yes. You know, is there a woman in a red dress? Yes, there is. You know, is it about that? No, right? It's supposed to, it's almost like a fever dream. And with the concept of Black Ops 3 essentially being, you know, from a certain perspective, being in your mind, then can the very nature of it be this kind of almost fever dreamish, non-literal experience?
I've always described this campaign to people. When I'm trying to like talk, it's hard to like talk to someone about it, because when I say, hey, let me talk about this Call of Duty campaign, the frame of mind they're in is not prepared for what I'm about to tell them.
Yes.
So it's like, I'm like, it's like if David Lynch directed a Call of Duty campaign.
Yeah.
And they're like, what?
Yeah, I was trying to, and again, it's a subversion of expectations, because Call of Duty campaigns normally were very straightforward, you know, A to B type stuff. We started obviously playing with certain questions, but if you look at it, Black Ops 1, you're playing in a traditional narrative structure with a unreliable narrator, right? Which is the technique we call it, right? Which is the first one. By the second one, we introduced the idea of multiple choice, right? The idea of I choose something, I do something, and it changes the story, right? By the third one, that was the other thing, which was the only place I could truly go to was that we completely abandon the structure of narrative campaigns completely and say, this is not a literal representation. So that's where the David Lynch thing kind of comes in, because, you know, you've played it on the first one, you've then done choice, and then you've got to completely let go of form itself to make the third one. And that was the idea.
I am not a mistake!
You know, the games industry, high quality AAA campaigns are so hard because it requires a discipline. It also requires a certain number of people. It requires a talent level.
You have to put the black hole in a container somehow.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, campaigns famously have always been one of the hardest things to do because of the simultaneous nature of it and then the scale of it. Because you don't make the levels one at a time. You're making them like this all at the same time, and then you're offsetting it slightly, right? So you've got to know your idea at the beginning and then start multiple levels going, and you've not all got the answers yet. And you've got to get the answers and then unify them all as it's all coming into land. Because if you did them one after another, there's not enough time. And you're not taking advantage. We're doing scheduling now. We're doing some production talking.
Yeah.
You're not taking advantage of the full kind of, you know, mass of your team. But as such, it means that you're starting things off where you don't have answers. And that's the other thing. You've got to be able to, you know, some people have talked to me and say, well, why don't the team know about all these secret things and so forth? It's like, you got to remember, the team has to focus. If I put, you know, the production department puts the work in front of the team and they're working, and then they see the next thing, and then they see the next thing, but they're just going at 200 miles an hour just with the thing that's placed in front of them. And our job is to be working out the problems and then also unifying levels, which they don't know about yet, as we're working forwards.
Yeah.
And then we're then locking it in and then dialing it in as it kind of comes to land.
So I imagine that. It's
like writing a book and you've got to do the first 3 chapters at the same time. because you
Yeah, I'm
can't,
good
you don't
on
have
that,
the
honestly.
you don't have the time to do it that way. So
Right.
you have to have the idea and go, those 3 levels of that, these 3 levels of that, and these 3 levels of this.
Were zombies maps ever like that? Especially when you got like, I don't know, a more regimented, like, okay, now we kind of found our groove, you know?
So no, not normally, because you have a little bit more space with a zombie map, right? And you're just going to stay. So I would normally have, let's say 2 going at the same time. So for instance, Mob of the Dead and Origins are happening at the same time.
Okay.
Right. And you only have a finite number of resources, right? So I've got, majority of my guys on Mob because it's going to come first, right? And, we said at the end where you start to slow down when you're kind of getting people, stop touching it. Where they're going? They're going to Origins, right? So they're finishing up there and they're going to Origins. And so you're going to move your team across, while you're bringing that one down to land and you're spinning this one up. So a little bit different to a campaign where you have 10 or 11 maps running simultaneously. But the team, the maximum allocation you do on a team is like 3 maps, 3 campaign maps at the same time, even with a 200-man studio.
My goodness.
But you've got to have laid up the next 3 and the next 3, even though you're only working on these first 3.
And God forbid you make any major changes to one, because then it probably...
Well, that's the thing. So the in my opinion, the good definition of a good director is to be able to be consistent because of these things, because it takes so long. And then to make it even more complex, by the way, I said it's like writing a book, the first 3 chapters. You never start with the first chapter. Because your first chapter is what we call the first pancake, right? The first pancake's always a bit,
Yep.
right? So you start like at level 5, level 6. So you're actually writing the middle of the story before you even know what the beginning of the story is. And you've got to do, let's say, the first 3 maps.
I think it was you telling me do the hardest thing first. It's like,
yeah.
So everything else is easy in comparison.
Black Ops 2, first level to be developed, LA.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's just insanity. Because when you first start for a team, they've got to believe in the product. They've got to believe in the game. At a time when there's nothing to believe in. Because it looks like absolute ass. Right?
Yeah.
It's the worst it will ever look. Right?
Sure.
And so you wanted to go and do the biggest, most complex thing first. So the first level for Black Ops 2 was LA, which was actually 3 levels strapped together. So it looks like 1 level on the menu, but actually it's 3 levels. 3 or 4 anyway.
What was the first level in Black Ops 1 then?
First level for Black Ops. Oh, that's interesting. So, actually, let me just, before I get to that one, let me finish up.
Sure.
Black Ops 2 second level is Karma, to give you an idea. I don't know if that was what it was called in the release. Is that what it was called in the release?
I know what you're talking.
It's what the island's called.
Yeah.
That was the second level. So we went from LA, which was just insane, to Karma, because I thought if we get the 2 hardest ones out right at the beginning because once you start going, once people start making levels, they say, well, that's as far as we can go. So you put the hardest things at the front, because then everything else looks like, it's easy compared to LA. We had there's a level later on in Yemen, which by any of the standards is a complex level or a hard lift level, and people are like,
I got it.
Nothing. We just did, flying onto a floating city in LA. Yemen's nothing, right? But yeah, so Black Ops 1. So we had a vertical slice, which is where you kind of show to Activision like what you're doing and what the theme of the game is. And we had, I think it was like 3 months to make a vertical slice, roughly. And it was a section of, I'll say the dev names, so if I'm saying the wrong names, I apologize. Operation Flashpoint, which is blowing up the rocket with a remote control rocket. And essentially we did a section where you were running away as rocket bits were falling down. We actually didn't put it in the final game, but there was a whole, as things were falling and exploding buildings and stuff, and you had to kind of run for it. We kind of cut earlier in the actual game. We did a hat bomber section, which we took from a Hollywood movie. We're talking about the idea of people around a helicopter and a bomb being thrown in a helicopter. We're trying to kind of capture the Vietnam thing. I think we had Creedence Clearwater playing, just kind of getting into the vibe of Vietnam. And then I think we had a little bit of Hue City, which was on the rope going through the window. And we hadn't worked out the Dragon's Breath rounds yet.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, but we had that kind of whole because it was historical things. So I'd done all my research on the MacV and what was kind of going on, and I was like, I really want to get this bit in there. So yeah, being on the rope flying through the window, and we did those 3 sections, and then when we went to full production, I want to say it was. Again, I'm going to use a dev name, so it was called Upper Creek, which was basically when you're.
Is that the one on the boat?
Not on the boat itself. It was you go into the rat tunnels later on.
Yeah.
But you're fighting through that village, and I think that was the first map we started doing.
You got a shout out in that level, I think, or
that's the boat level.
The boat level is like shout out to this is for Sergeant Blundell.
Goes out to Sergeant Blundell and all our boys of the RPO.
Yeah, and that joke was because when I was a kid, I had this idea of having a fighting game where you were fighting and you were trying to stop the ultimate evil in the world, and then at the end of the game, you found out that you were the ultimate evil. And I'd pitched the idea that like "Sympathy for the Devil" by the Rolling Stones would be the piece of music that would kind of play at the end. I've never made that game, but that's why they put, when we got "Sympathy for the Devil," they were like, okay, call out to Jason, because I'd asked for it when I was 16. That was why.
That's so funny.
That was the game I wanted to make when I was 16.
I was actually at the gym before I came here at home, and that song came on.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
yeah. It was just, and that song came on at the gym, like literally before I came here, and I was like, it was just so coincidental. I was like, I know what that song is. I'm like, that's gonna mean something to somebody.
Yeah, I was really I was beside myself with excitement when we secured that and we got that in there.
That's so fun.
That's incredible. It was a great track to get in there.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that so much. So there's talk in this codex about Raul Menendez, and he's commonly referred to as like Osiris. And we were seeing a lot of depictions of John Taylor's team as Greek gods: Prometheus, Pallas, Thea, and Hyperion. And that...
I'm a bit partial to my mythology.
No, and see here's the thing I want to...
Yeah.
I'll eventually get to it, but... So there's that in combination with... BO3, again, is a miracle for a lot of reasons, but just the amount of content that you were able to get here, like, okay, not only is there a campaign, but there's also a negative space story in the campaign that you got to go find, but there's also another campaign. Yes. There's another campaign. So you guys did, for people who don't know, there's a little bonus tab, and once you unlock it, there's a mode called Nightmares.
Yes.
And that's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, primarily made by 2 guys.
Really?
Yeah.
Were you one of them?
No. Yes, in the dying minutes of the campaign, we had 2 guys who were suitably motivated to remix the entire game.
And the thing, so I actually did a whole video on Nightmares like, I don't know, 6 months ago. And the thing that struck me immediately was that you load into Nightmares and the mission order is mixed up. It's mixed around.
Yes.
And it's not backwards like it should be played in the normal campaign. It's its own thing.
Yep.
Like you start with Hypocenter and then you go to like New World, and then you are fighting like zombie enemies, and the narrative is completely different.
Yep.
What's going on there?
It was a different fun story that we got excited by. That had nothing to do with anything apart from its
anything.
Well, yeah.
Well, so I think Nightmares is, I just think it's a fun experience that people can play. And again, the fact that there's a campaign on top of your campaign is really impressive. I had a personal question about it though.
Yeah.
Is that as I was, playing this recently and having a context of, Call of Duty as it's gone on, this was my thought, is that, because the whole Nightmare story, you have Deimos and Dolos, talking your ear off and kind of vying for control of you, and so on. But it's cool because it kind of uses the backdrop still of like the campaign, and it's not completely out of place. Like it does kind of make sense. I think it's really funny that just like all the dialogue in the game is muted.
Yeah.
And you just listen to them, but like the characters are like talking and you just hear nothing.
And by the way, the reason why I'm very proud of this, and I'm very excited by it, is this is classic game dev. What I mean by that is, it's like, you give Lego to a kid and then they start creating, right? Essentially, that's what we had here. It was like, hey guys, okay, here's this map. These are the things you can change. How would you remix this?
How did you have time for that, given, what happened with, how on earth did that, that's crazy.
So it turns out that, I remember, I think it was the Formula One driver, Damon Hill, who said this. But he said the big mistake is that people think that when you're driving a fast car, like a Formula One car, that you're moving your hands really fast. And it's like, actually, it's the opposite. The faster you go, the slower you move. And the same's true for directing or executive producing computer games, which is when it goes insane, that's where you start to become consistent and kind of regular in that way.
Yeah.
Rather than running around with your heads on fire. That's everybody else's job. My job is to be consistent at all things. So I'm kind of coming through and we're starting the next thing off, the next thing off, the next thing off.
Yeah.
All the way through. And again, my job is to be on a different kind of pace. So everyone's getting tired at different rates. And my job is to be consistent throughout. So as everyone's getting tireder, I'm still doing my thing. So
like in World at War, you beat the campaign, you unlock zombies, right?
Yep.
You guys always did like a thing after beating the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
World at War, you get Nocturne and Toten. You beat Black Ops 1, you get access to 5.
Sure.
It loads you right into that map. BO2, you beat the campaign. You don't really get like a zombie thing, but you get that funny cutscene with Woods and Menendez, the concert.
Yes. The bit that makes me laugh is the bit where Reznov, I think, is there dancing. And he's gone a second later.
Yeah.
And Mason's like, what?
He's like, huh? It's so good. But you guys always have like a fun thing that happens after the campaign. Just something that totally unexpected.
Right.
And you beat the BO3 campaign, and then you get another campaign. That is so funny to me.
Sure.
Like that's hilarious, and I can't believe y'all pulled that off. But with all the the way that the story plays out and Deimos and Dolos and stuff, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of other gods mentioned. I had the thought, and I was wondering, I was like, I don't know how much of this you literally wrote, but I'm like, if this is the stuff that was going through your head at the time, I'm like, did this stuff kind of, in a way, serve as inspiration for the Chaos story in Black Ops 4 in any way?
No, so I didn't write the story for Nightmares.
Okay.
Interesting fact, the gentleman who did was also the creator of the zombie timeline. It was the same guy who did those two things. I hope he won't mind me saying that, but he was one of the primary writers on that as well.
Wow, I did not know that. I did not know that at all. Yeah, because I was playing, and in the last mission, they were talking about like Perseus, and I was like, wait a second. And I was like, has he been like toying with these ideas and cooking them, and then a lot of that stuff ended up coming to fruition in BO4?
No, they were able to kind of write the story, and then I was obviously reading over it and checking and putting my 2 cents on, right? But it was predominantly them. Yeah.
I have a funny little question here.
Okay.
Is Reznov John Trent? Because he's in this game. He's mentioned here.
No comment.
Fair enough. Didn't expect one. Would you have done anything differently if you could do it over again?
Oof. Yes. Tons of things. But I challenge any person who is involved in the creative arts to not say that they'd want to go and touch something again. But I think it's very important to know that piece of art, that game, that product is its moment in time. So would I want to fix things? Sure. Are there decisions that I went one way that in retrospect I could have gone another way? Are there allocations or certain things that ideas that could have made it that didn't? Sure, 100%. I think if you think that way, though, you'd have a real trouble kind of moving forwards, right? The problem is in more modern computer game, AAA games, with hundreds of people working over multiple years, the numbers of questions and the number of meetings you're in every single day, and decisions you have to make, you're hoping that you come out there with a 50-50 success rate.
Sure.
Right? If I'm in 10 meetings in a day, if 5 of them turned out the way they should, great. That worked out really well.
I think about it from the perspective of making videos and making a video as an experience for someone to watch, and then I will look back at some of my own content and I'm like, there's all these things I want to pull out and fix and rearrange, and it just happens over time. And I didn't change those in those moments, but as time passes, I can look back and I'm like, I should want to fix all these things. But at the same time, that meant something to somebody. And I think about, I saw a video recently, and it was like talking about the Disney Channel like musical theme.
Okay.
Just a little dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
Some guy, I mean, he's not some guy. He's like, a legendary like musician, but he did it in like 2 hours, and it was just a day for him. It was whatever. It was just this thing that he did. But that meant so much to so many people. Like that literally like defined people's childhoods. And I would say kind of, a lot of us had our childhoods defined by things that might have just been an afternoon for y'all.
Sure.
And I sometimes think about that with like videos too, where it's like, as much as I want to pick things and I hate how this looks now, I'm like, maybe that meant something to somebody.
You have to be able to walk away from it. You have to be comfortable with the decisions that you made and stand by them.
I guess as far as what you guys are up to now with Magic Fractal, which you guys can go check out if you're interested in this kind of like, if you're anything like me and you get really into stuff like this, that's definitely the place to be if that's a kind of game you're going to enjoy, because I mean, that's the stuff that gets me excited. So like, I guess I'm curious like what your approach is now of like the stuff that you guys are going to be doing. And just what you're interested in. Yeah,
I mean, I think the kind of subversion of expectations is always going to be of interest to me. The kind of slightly rock and roll and anti-authority angle is always interesting to me. I think there's different vehicles that can go in. But I think the real challenge for today across the industry in general is about getting into people's hands and fans' hands faster. Right? I think as we've made bigger and bigger games, it's great. The kind of production quality's gone up. It's fantastic. The downside is I think the fans have had to wait longer. And I think as the money kind of goes up and the cost of projects get bigger, the appetite for risk goes down. And I understand why, right? Because you're gambling with large sums of money, right? Which is why when an opportunity comes around, like Black Ops 3, take it. But I think those things have produced incredible products of games over the years. But I think that's the challenge that the industry is facing right now. And so thinking about how do we get to the fans' hands faster, give them something they want, give them something they can be proud of, give them something they can be excited by, but not having to do as much legwork to get there, because everything's just going so fast. But not turn that into cheapness, right? How do you make sure that's, but you got to remember, the way that people in the games industry look at cheapness is also different to how fans now play games. We have certain expectations from a development point of view. We see this, we see that. Oh, that we can't leave that. Most fans wouldn't even spot that or know that. But we kind of make our own. We kind of put a rod up our back, if you will, in terms of. Well, we start building things out in a certain world. We say, well, if you're going to do that, then we have to do this, and we have to do that, and then it's like 3 years later. Making decisions now that I think are more about what the fans actually want, rather than us look at, from the games industry point of view, thinking that we know better in terms of what should be made. In a certain way. Sure. Like, look at what the fans are saying, what they want, and get to them quicker.
That's a hard balance, hey, because it's like. You were talking to him about when a project is nearing its end and you have to like start sending your best guys home.
Yes.
Because I know you want to do all these things and you probably would make it really good, but at the same time, like you just got to be satisfied with it at a certain point.
because the dev team have to see it looking terrible for the whole time, right?
And they get excited when it looks nice.
It's just as it starts looking out, because the lighting department comes in at the very end, and all the textures are coming in, and suddenly like, wow, it's incredible, and that's when they suddenly want to have this kind of second wind, right? This burst of energy, and that's exactly the time when it's going to be like, go home, stop touching the game.
What do you think I'm gonna say next? Outcome. Train go boom.
Okay, so if you did the safe version of BO3, would it be a more like I don't want to say streamlined, but would it be a little more like, actually no, let me rephrase that. If this campaign wasn't co-op, would you have structured it a lot more like Black Ops 1 and have more deliberate, moments like within the actual missions?
Because of the amount of time I had, if I was going to go safe, it would have been more like it would have been more like a Black Ops 1. But with the amount of time, it probably would have been more like a COD 3, like really kind of structured. Like it's going to have to be this kind of. That was the thing, to make it the kind of safer one, I would have had to scale it all the way down and make it and get it really right. And so I would have removed a lot of the craziness that 3 kind of got, which is doing this kind of smorgasbord of features and effects and going, okay, let's make a different texture. If I was going to go safe, I would have gone really safe to make sure that it was
interesting.
Solid.
Because this campaign is like a lot of the storytelling moments are like some of my favorite storytelling in previous Black Ops games are the moments where like there's not even any action. I mean, I think about the mission in Black Ops 1 where you get to the Pentagon. It's just a whole mission of you're just sitting in a car.
We tried so hard to have gameplay there.
I think it works without it, personally.
Me too. But we tried so hard. Like that. So the Pentagon level was in development for like 6 months.
Really?
And we were desperately trying to have gameplay. We built like a section of the Pentagon. And
that ended up becoming 5.
We were like, this can't just be an IGC. This can't just be a cinematic. And we were trying and trying. We had one point where it was like, you had to kind of look and click things, like see things as you walk through, and if you missed it, you failed. And the problem was
because you see a little bit out in the mission where it's like you walk through and like you get like these like slow down moments where you see somebody and
we were like, we've got to stylize the crap out of this because we're just making a level which is a cinematic. But we tried so hard, and the problem was like looking at things and clicking it, and then it failed you. Like, we can't fail you. We the momentum for the story. Like, we talk about cutting the level completely, but we need to have the JFK moment. So we're like, okay, let's just get through this as fast as possible. That was the concept, which is like,
wow.
Because we tried to make gameplay, and we were like, we just couldn't find anything.
It does feel like that mission, like that, all that goes by really quick, but I think it kind of works for just the what y'all were going for in that. Yeah. It feels kind of frenetic.
Yeah.
And
because we needed the gap between Vorkuta. And so we needed that like kind of reset. Oh, everything's good, right?
Yeah.
Reset moment. But we were like, it's a game for God's sake. But we couldn't find anything.
I think it's so interesting you guys were gonna have gameplay for that. So I have to imagine that 5, the zombies map, is some of that geo that you guys built for that level.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Because that was like, well, we'll have to do a zombie map now. Like, okay, we've admitted defeat that we couldn't make a campaign level out of it. You've got to make a zombie map out of it. Because
that's where it came from.
Use every bit of the cow. Always use every bit of the cow, right? We've killed a cow. We're going to eat all of it. We're going to use every little bit in some other way, right? Because lots of people work very hard to do that stuff. And so it absolutely pains me when things get thrown away. Because everything can be... Again, that's what gets me excited. That you pour a bucket of Lego out, I'm like, okay, right? That's real fun.
Yeah.
So when there's like a level or a feature or a weapon or a thing that just can't get in for whatever reason, like I just light up at that point. I'm like, okay, gonna find a way of getting this back in again.
It was working.
It never gets old. Overwhelming, isn't it?
Not yet.
Black Ops wouldn't be the game that it was without 5. So if you guys hadn't just tried and messed around on this thing and this random campaign mission, that wouldn't have happened for us. And
it was the one. It was the one map that we just couldn't get.
That's unbelievable. That kind of makes sense though that you guys were gonna have gameplay on that. But I do think it works like not having it because it kind of feels like when you're like in Mason's body, it kind of feels like your heart rate's up a little bit. It feels like things are moving around you quickly, and you know, it's hard to get your footing, which I like. This is a big thing for me, and this is something that I will harp on all the time. The thing that I really like about your guys' campaigns, especially in that era, and I think that it's been kind of lost, not just in Call of Duty, but a lot of video games too, is that you guys did a really good job about keeping you in the game while you tell story instead of just cutting to a cinematic. And cinematics, in the right context, are important.
Sure.
Origins would never hit the same without that cinematic and just completely ripping you out of what you were doing.
Right.
That was intentional, I'm sure. But some of my favorite moments in campaigns, including VO3, are like that Pentagon mission. Also in Black Ops 2, I like that mission where the one like right before the invasion, you get out and you're hanging out with the woods and you go to that guy's backyard.
Yep.
And he like comes out and he's arguing with his wife and you have a beer and there's no action in that. You're not doing shooty things.
And
but
that was all based on military advisors that would come and speak to us.
Really?
Talking to us about what it's like before a mission. The fact that they go around to each other's houses and have a barbecue and have a beer. These stories are being told about real activities, real special operation guys, that they know the wives, that they know where they live, that they're all together, right? It was, and the bag, because if I remember that mission later on, the framing Noriega, thank you, and they're talking about putting the red pajamas on his bed, because I did research on it, and it turned out that the CA, when they wanted to discredit somebody, would put red pajamas because somehow that was associated with being a degenerate. So if they needed to frame someone, they put like red pajamas down. Again, I don't know how historically true or not it is, but when I was doing my research, there was this idea of this is how you this is how you can discredit somebody. Is when they capture it, they say, "Oh, look at the stuff we found in his room when we found him." Red pajamas. Only bad people wear red pajamas. I remember thinking this is hilarious. So like in the bag, I think I got it in there. There's like red pajamas in there because I'd read about it as being a technique they'd used to discredit people.
I didn't even notice that detail.
I don't even know if they made it in there, but that was something I was doing when I was.
Wow.
But that was for me, and I love the history. If I was if I've got a map and it's like, okay, we're going to go to whichever country. In this time period, I would research everything. I'd go into as much research as I possibly could, and then just put little touches in, which most people would not even know. But I could tell you a story on each thing and say, that's why that's there, that's why that's there.
You can't undersell how important it is. Like because that moment could have just easily been a cutscene or like just a CG thing where, it's just a third person camera and you just watch that happen.
Sure.
And that's kind of like what a lot of games do now, but you kept the player still in the view of the character the whole time, even though you don't really control it. I mean, you can look around, but you're not.
Yeah, we always
walking
used to do
around.
that. We always did that the rubber band on the head as well, so you can kind of look away and it'll kind of come back to the center.
Yeah.
I just never wanted you to really just full on put the controller down.
Yes.
Because once the controller's down, then maybe you're not going to pick it back up again. I want you to have it in your hand, and I also want you to not know how long this is going to go on for. That any moment might be happening at some point. So. It just keeps you. The rubber banding thing keeps you on your toes because, like, it gives you something to do while you're like listening to things, and then at any moment, like, it can just snap into action, and you're already there. Yep. So it's not like, oh, I gotta. Yep.
Your art, and I that is an art that's been lost. I think in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we used to always be worried about cinematics and taking control away from the player.
Because you used them very sparingly, and maybe that was like because it was expensive or.
No. Just literally from a gameplay point of view. My cinematic director and I would love nothing more than to just do full cinematics all the time.
Sure.
But that's not a game.
Yeah.
That's a movie.
Yeah.
And there's another industry down the road that does that. I think it's about cinematics and animation plussing the experience. And if done well, you never want people to say, oh, here's a cinematic. Because if you say, here's a cinematic, you're aware of what's happening. If you get it right, there's just this moment that happened.
and it doesn't rip the player out of the game. This BO3 did a really good job of that, because the level structure is a lot more open-ended. But when you hit those story moments, it was a very like unjarring, just very natural moment into the actual like cutscene of a couple characters, and then it would just cut right back to gameplay. You wouldn't even notice it.
And we kind of had to because it's 4-player co-op.
Yeah. So you couldn't cut to a scene where all 4 friends just put down their controllers and just,
So that was, again, one of those restrictions was a forcing function of, okay, how are we going to deal with cinematics? How do you blend people into one camera, tell them a cinematic, then blend them back out again so they can have control and not be aware that we just did that?
I mean, I love that intention. Like, I could go on forever just of all the little moments in COD campaigns where and it's not even an action shooty moment. It's just...
The one that was... So we normally try and do it and make sure that you don't notice what we're doing, right? We're trying to not have you notice it. The one where we thought it'd be funny if we just let you notice it a little bit was Black Ops 1, and it was the on Rebirth Island where Mason comes in to kill Steiner, right?
Yeah.
And he walks in, and when you walk in through the door, we keep you in first person, and so we've taken control away from you, which we don't normally do. We've taken control this way. So you're walking in, you're pushing forward on the controller. We take control, and then just before he starts to talk to him, we drift the camera out and carry it all on. And we normally don't do that. So drifting the camera out, well, he starts to have his rant at the doctor, not Steiner, was the idea of disassociation. That you're actually, to separate the camera from the character is actually the mental break, because essentially at that point he's Reznov. Because he starts saying, I am Victor Reznov and I will have my revenge. But as he does that, the camera's drifted away, which is the disassociation, which allows us to kind of frame for the viewer, but also represent what is emotionally or mentally happening at that moment in time.
And you say that now, and I'm like, I know what you're talking about, and I didn't even I didn't notice it exactly. Like, I'm sure now I have to replay every COD campaign. Because now I have to look for this one. You just gave me so much work to do.
My name is Victor Reznov. And I will have my revenge.
After talking with Jason, I left the conversation feeling inspired, and I got a lot of questions that I had about Black Ops 3's campaign answered for me, but more importantly, I got to experience something that, younger me would have killed to do. I got to sit down and just talk to Jason one-on-one about video games and my favorite stuff, and I think the passion for storytelling and video games in general is definitely clear as day, and if you want to stay up to date with what Jason and his team are up to, follow Magic Fractal on Twitter. You can go check them out over there. I highly encourage all of you guys to do that, because if you're interested in playing another Jason Blundell game, which I know I am, that is going to be the place to be. So go follow that. But thank you guys for making this possible. It was an absolute honor and a pleasure to sit down and talk to Jason, and I'm so glad I got to share with you guys. So thank you all for watching. Make sure to subscribe, and there might be more.